Woo. Oh. Whoa. Check, check, 1, 2, testing this audio, bro. Whoa, 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 whoa. Testing, testing. Hey, all right, how's it going, YouTube? This is super fun. I like doing this. I like going live. I like hearing like feedback in real time of like what everybody thinks, because oftentimes I read every comment on all my videos, and like, you know, you never know like when you reply if that other person ever sees the message too. So this is in real time. This is more interactive, more fun, right? And I got my little Hawaiian shirt on. I look like a dad having some margaritas on a Carnival cruise. That's the kind of look I'm going for today. You know, summer is coming up. Have fun, have some drinks, get prepared for this draft, which is going to happen in about 7 days, right? So definitely going to be a lot of margaritas that day for me. Thinking about going live too. That might happen. I'm not entirely sure, but could be something we do. Now, this is a particular video. First of all, right off the bat, I want to get your thoughts. Yes or no on PFF? How do you like how PFF has graded the Raiders so far? Put a Y in the chat if you, just based off your own assumption, like what PFF's doing, and an N if you do not like what PFF is doing. So, you know, we got to tackle this, man. Do we like PFF or not? I don't know what people think. 7 days is coming, is happening. The draft is happening. So let me know in the chat. Do you like PFF? Do you not? I'm wondering what you people think. Me, if I'm gonna do my thing, just because there's nothing else, and I don't think like straight up stats, like if you look at a receiver straight up yards and touchdowns, that doesn't really tell you like how good they were, if they got lucky. And the only other thing we have other than just like individual people's opinions is PFF, right? And at least it's a team of people breaking it down. What up, Raider 11? What up, Jason Rollins in the chat? I'm gonna give it a Y. What do you? We got one in. I'm giving it a Y so far. I'm gonna go through though. After I get you guys, your votes in a little bit, I'm gonna go through every single group. I'm gonna stick with the starters, and I'm gonna start with offensive line. Or what do you think I should start with? I'm just gonna go with offensive line. I'm gonna make it quick, because we're fans. We like the specialist positions. I like offensive line too. I know how important it is. But I think if you're a Raiders fan and you're locked into what's going on Twitter, what's going on YouTube, you kind of know the consensus around the offensive line. Salty Raider fanboy. I love that name. I'm a Salty Raider fanboy too. What up, dude? Derek Carr MVP. Hey, here is the thing. I am from Fresno. I watched Derek Carr play at Fresno State. Even though I am critical of him sometimes, I really want him to succeed. I'll let you guys just know that about me right now. And best believe I'm going to some Fresno State games this year. Anyways, I'm going to get into it. I got a few of you. I'm pretty much the only one who gave it a Y on PFF. That's fine. That's cool with me. So let's just get right into it. I don't really want to hold up shit. And there's the chat too. So I'm not going to focus a ton on the chat, but when I see something, I'll go back to that other screen and we'll talk about some things. So let's start off. Brandon Parker. Now this guy, I'm going to go over him right now because I think this guy might actually start in some ways. I think it's definitely a possibility if they don't have anyone. Although I think the fact that they sort of went with Sam Young over Brandon Parker, as I've said in other videos, it makes me think, okay, they don't really value this guy as much as you think. They're going to give Sam Young reps over Brandon Parker last year. That's a big deal. And maybe this PFF grade is indicative of that. Although I do want to say a couple things. This guy is a physical freak, 6'8", 300 pounds. Hey, that is close to Trent Brown measurements. I mean, I know that's crazy to say, but that's very close. That's about, it's like 50 pounds off, but a lean Trent Brown. That's close to those measurements. Now, he only played 122 snaps at left tackle and 222 at right tackle. That's a lot, though, to be able to swing like that in 1 year. That's asking a lot for him. A backup, so you only play 345 snaps, but on that you have 55 grade and pass blocking, even worse in run blocking. That's not looking too good for him. I know we can be skeptical of this stuff. We could take a look at some of the games he played. Looks like he did really well against Tampa Bay, shockingly. However, he did not play that many snaps when it comes to Tampa Bay. If we can get the snap count right. So he played 42. So that's about like 10 to 20 off of a typical starter. But still, that's a really good defensive line. However, struggles against Buffalo, struggles against Atlanta. Honestly, everybody struggled against Atlanta, though, right? If you look at Trent Brown, didn't do well. If you look at Colton Miller, he didn't do well, too. So maybe we'll pivot over to Colton Miller right now, actually. So let me just show you real quick. Colton Miller. Now, what I'd like to say, that's a pretty good PFF grade, in my opinion. God dang it, sorry. Now, overall, it looks like we have a 81 on pass blocking. We have a I didn't get the right thing going. So this is technical difficulties, but we can fucking move past this. 72 for the season. Obviously had that rough rookie year. 34th best tackle according to PFF. We could take that with a grain of salt. Who knows? And like I was showing before, did he struggle against Atlanta? Yes, everybody struggled against Atlanta. Only struggled in the run game, though, according to PFF. Not so much in the pass game. And Carolina struggled in the run game. And Jacobs had so many carries that game too. You wonder how he persevered through that. And Denver did really well, and Indianapolis did well. When you do well in the run game with Indianapolis and pass game, that's amazing. They have a strong defensive line led by DeForest Buckner. So they're giving him a decent grade. Obviously, they're not giving him like any 90s anywhere or anything like that. That's kind of hard to pull off as an offensive lineman. But I believe, according to this, they are saying he is like one of the best 64 tackles, top tier. So I would say he was one of the best left tackles of the 32. But that's still like a lower echelon of a starter. So they're saying he's one of the worst starters, but best offensive lineman. That's kind of iffy for me. I think he's a lot better than that. I think that contract proves that, right? So what do you guys think so far? We got Brandon Parker and we have Colton Miller so far. So we got Brandon Parker with a pretty bad grade. Colton Miller not with that favorable of a grade so far too. So do we want to get a Y or a no on PFF on Colton Miller? What do you think? 72.9 grade so far. I'm going to take a look at this chat, though, and make some comments on what you guys are saying. So, who do we have here so far? Simpson had bad technique, according to Icy Nate, but looked better in week 17. Henry Ruggs is going to have an awesome year. Jason Rollins, I think that's true. Raid the Tape, what's up? How you doing? Then we got freaking Salty Raider. I love Salty Raider fanboy. I love this screen name, by the way. I mean, I relate. Robert Kavanaugh, yeah, Atlanta game, that's pretty rough. Salty Raider, wouldn't mind Quentin Myers, young prodigy to Richie Incognito. You know who has to be the young prodigy? Young promising guard, John Simpson, 4th round, he has to work out. Colton should at least be at 80. I think that's true too. That's quite unfortunate. Now let's check out my man, Richie Incognito. We're just talking about him. Wow, these are some great grades over the years. 81 in 2020, although he played very few snaps, so that's why he's got an 81 in 2020. 74, I thought he would be higher in 2019 because I saw there was like a 4-game stretch where he was one of the best in the NFL at guard for a little while. So yeah, let's check out his receiving grades. You guys want to see that? So 2020, we know we have nothing. When he did play Carolina, he was significantly better than at least better than Colton Miller in the run game. Granted, guards are going to be better in the run game overall, I think. New Orleans struggled, and that's why he got injured. He got injured, so who knows how healthy he really was going into that game. And we want to check out how he was in 2019 overall. Really good. Looks like he struggled against Cincinnati in the run game, oddly. According to PFF, of course, take that with a grain of salt. Passing, though, it looks like he didn't really ever have a bad game besides against the Chargers in week 10. And the Chargers had a really good defense that game, that week in particular. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Granted, the Raiders picked up the W on that last year, so in 2019. So this is actually pretty fair. I am not totally surprised by this. What I am surprised the most is Indianapolis week 4. When they're led by Jacoby Brissett, Richie Incognito, I thought had an amazing game. I know he got a penalty where he did some taunting. I think he rubbed some guy's head into the ground or something. So obviously he's not going to have the greatest grade after that. John Simpson, we're looking at a really bad grade. 6'4", 330 though. That's some interesting measurements there for a guard. That's a lot of power. That's really strong. Pass block against New Orleans. So Richie Incognito goes out, and then you bring John Simpson in. Has a really rough game. Thrown into the fire week 2 in a COVID year. What do you expect, really? Made a little bit of comeback against Tampa Bay. So I'm seeing two people. I'm seeing Brandon Parker and John Simpson show some flashes, according to PFF, against Tampa Bay. That's promising, and maybe that is why we left. We threw some people out when we're coming on this new year. Miami struggled against the run game. We know Derek Carr had to pass the ball at least every single time against Miami. That's a good defense too. What I'm really concerned about here is struggling against New England and Denver, because New England, I know they have good defensive coaching, Bill Belichick, but at the same time, They don't have the talent. When you're struggling there, that's rough. Granted, that's earlier in the season, but I don't think we want to see people struggle here. Denzel Good, we've seen him complain on Twitter about his PFF grade, and maybe that's totally warranted. We know low against Carolina, but as we've seen, every Raiders offensive lineman did poorly against Carolina, especially in the run. And we have Tampa Bay. He's actually the one who did bad. So we have Brandon Parker, John Simpson do pretty decent against Tampa Bay. Well, John Simpson struggled. So Cleveland, though, that run blocking grade, that's amazing. We know that was a really messed up weather game. It was not a typical game. You hear people like Cowherd say that was good coaching because Gruden knew how to adjust to the weather. And that may actually be true. And so we have a really good grade against Cleveland, and that's a really strong defensive line. Take into account the weather conditions. Poorly against the Jets in the pass game for good. That's really concerning, although they do have Quinnen Williams, who's a great interior pass rusher, and so Good's probably going to have to pick up a lot of that. Kansas City, bad against the pass in week 11, though he did good in week 5 when we picked up the W. And that's kind of weird to me because I know Derek Carr got the ball out quickly week 11 in Kansas City. And I don't recall him ever getting sacked or touched. So that is a really odd grade for me, especially for pass blocking week 11 in Kansas City. I don't know if I agree with that. Everybody did bad against Atlanta. Miami still struggling, but at least halfway decent according to PFF. Let me know what you think. What do you think about these grades so far? Do we consider John Simpson a good zone blocker? Salty Raider fan. He's a bit of a big guy. Not sure about his mobility. He must be, he must be faster than we think. 330, 6'4". We don't have his speed. I don't know his 40 time right now, but interesting though, man. Don't know what they're going to do in that department though. He could start, could not, who knows. Well, anyways, I'm going to tackle the rest of the offensive line. Like I'm saying, this is going to be a long video, man. Sorry for showing you all this random behind the scenes stuff. We're a work in progress over here with WiFiWillie Raiders. So let's take a look at who we care about a lot, which is Andre James. I don't even see him. Oh, they have him listed as a tackle here at PFF, so that shows how much they know, dude. They have the guy listed as a tackle. That is wrong, bro. Okay, 60 grade. 2019 is when he actually played, and yes, they gave this dude a horrible grade. They just went off right into him. So we know 2020 only played 1 snap. But, there's going to be film breakdowns about that, right? Anyways, I'm not hating on it. I'm just saying. It's a low sample size. And so we have, 136 snaps? That's how you know. That's actually 116 snaps in 2019. Did well against the pass against Houston. I love that game. Deshaun Watson versus Derek Carr, Houston 2019. Rewatch that game if you want to watch a Raiders game. Offense looks so great in that game. Chargers, 1 snap, but that was a good snap, right? And obviously did really bad against Detroit. And that could be true. I mean, at their center position, week 9, he knew he was going to start prior to that game. I think he did well against Detroit. I've seen some film breakdowns where it shows that he did well. But although that is a pretty close game, and when you look at Detroit over the past 2 years, one of the worst teams in the NFL, and we barely beat them by a miracle Carl Joseph play, that's really concerning. That shows me the offense did not move the ball as much as they'd like, and obviously the defense struggled too. But against Detroit, you want to do a lot better than that. Who knows? Do you agree with Andre James's grade against Detroit? I know a lot of you saw that game. What do you think? Andre James, Detroit, PFF, do you agree? Yes or no? Let me know in the chat if you agree or not. Yeah, that game was one game where it was like too close to comfort. It's one of those things where your cortisol raises. You need substances afterwards to chill out despite the victory. Makes you concerned about the future. So let me know what you think. I don't know if I entirely agree. Although you just need more of a sample size with Andre James. Mayock in his conference sounds confident about him, but I am definitely worried about that. So we went through good. We went through incognito, Simpson, James, Brandon Parker, Colton Miller. Now let's go to the tight end side of the ball. What's funny about Derek Carrier is he's only had like 9 offensive plays last year, so he has an 87 grade because of that one catch against Kansas City in week 11. He did like it was like a fake reverse catch, then he broke a tackle. So he's going to have a high grade. So that's why these grades are misleading. Foster Moreau, that's a little more interesting to me. It seems like coming off the injury, he had a little worse grade in 2020. And granted, I don't know how legit that is, right? But New England, he really good in the red zone there. Kansas City struggled, didn't really make a play, only on 12 snaps. New Orleans, though, we saw him go off. Indianapolis, I'm curious about when he got that touchdown last year. Right, 90 grade, 8 snaps. When you play 8 snaps and one of your catches is a touchdown where you break a tackle, I think he was juked, you know? White guy juking out people is pretty nice. That's a good grade. That's a good grade. I think this is a fair grade for the limited amount of snaps. So if he has one little mishap, his grade's going to take a significant tank. Now let's go look at Darren Waller, right? He has 86 grade, so third best grade this of tight ends in 2020. I mean, I think he's number 1, right? What do you think? Do you think Darren Waller's number 1 or number 3? And here's the thing. Here's how you know for a fact that Darren Waller is the best tight end in football. Ask any Chiefs fan. Would they trade Travis Kelce for Darren Waller? Yes, they would do that in a heartbeat. That's how you know he's the best tight end in the NFL. So, taking a look at this stuff, I find it weird. The Carolina game, a really low grade. I mean, I think he just didn't have like a touchdown in that game from what I remember. Pass blocking, obviously, he's never going to have that good of a grade there. But Atlanta, wow. There actually was a play, one of my early videos that I deleted because it was trash. I didn't know what I was doing back then. Darren Waller did miss a block that led to a sack. Wow, these are great grades, though. When you get 90 against New Orleans offense or defense, one of the best defenses in the NFL, that's fantastic. 83, a little lower against Tampa Bay, even though he caught that red zone touchdown pass. That's a little iffy for me. Plus, that game against Tampa Bay, I think I need to do a whole penalty breakdown because there's just so much bullshit in that game. Cleveland going to have a bad game because of the weather. Denver, I find it really odd in week 10 he had a bad grade. I'm going to have to look at that game again. I know we ran the ball well that game and it was a defensive victory. And the last week, Denver, that 2-point conversion he did, the last play of the 2020 season was beautiful. I think on that play alone, he deserves a better grade in week 17. Wow. Mariota in the Chargers, week 15, fantastic grade. We saw that long streak, that long touchdown. Jets, man, he owned the Jets. He was pretty much our whole entire offense against the Jets. Really, really sad about that, but it's the truth. Kansas City, great grade. Week 5, Kansas City, not a good grade. Really odd there. Buffalo struggled. New England struggled. So New England is key, and Atlanta, because everything else is great. I think New England makes a little bit of sense because they really figured it out against the Raiders that game. They straight up double covered him. Carr had nowhere to go. I think he had one big play to Renfro, one big play to Aguilar, and outside of that, they had straight up nothing. And we know the truth. That is a really good point. You know, yeah, Witten stole snaps from Moreau. Granted, I don't think Moreau is 100% healthy. And I think you might see a similar thing happen to Tanner Muse, where he doesn't play right away when you like kind of want him to, because he's still coming off that IR injury, you know? I hope that doesn't happen to Incognito. He's had a little more time to heal than Tanner Muse, but we'll see what happens. Yeah, I got the Tommy Bahama shirt on. Yes, bust out the margaritas. Not this early though, right? We got to be a little civilized. We all got to work, right? Shout out to Raid the Tape. That guy, like his stuff too. And Salty Raider fan, I don't believe he did bad against the Lions that year. He was holding his own, was setting lanes in the run. He's talking about Andre James, and I think there's some truth to that. You know, there's some film breakdowns you could find out on YouTube about that. And if Mayock and Gruden are going to invest that much into this guy, I mean, he must be doing something right. So PFF, they're not coaches. They are analysts. They're you know, they're no different than us, really. They just have access to certain data. They're able to commit the time to show us as much as they need to show us. So that is why I think they are able to make these claims, not necessarily based on expertise, but what is expertise really? There's question marks all over the place. Data has a big role in how we evaluate players, even if you are a pro coach. Kenyon Drake, the new player, 4.4 40 speed. I didn't know that. So I just want to quickly compare his 40 speed to Josh Jacobs. 4.45. That's actually pretty good for a running back. and Jacobs is 40 speed, not even listed here. So when it's not listed, in my opinion, it's probably not as great as you'd like it to be. I'm just being completely honest. I don't want to hate on Jacobs at all. I love Jacobs, but that's just how it works sometimes. So Kenyon Drake now, Cardinals. I know we're not too familiar with them as Raiders fans. It's not like we watched every single one of their games last year. I watched a significant amount of games by the Cardinals. One thing that's interesting, not this year, but in 2019, Kenyon Drake was like against, oh no, yeah, okay, here we go. I was like, what? This is him in Miami. Against San Francisco, I remember he was fire. And yes, that is very true. When Kenyon Drake came out, I was somebody who picked him up on fantasy football when he got picked up by the Cardinals, and I was stoked. I remember being stoked. And yes, he did go off against the Niners. Now think about it. 2019 Niners, what are they in 2019? The best defense in the NFL. I hate to say it. I lived in the Bay Area for 10 years. Freaking hated hearing Niner fans say Niner gang over and over again. Really just like cringy to me. Tons of arguments at school. And yeah, very annoying fan base. Very pompous, very overrated. Jerry Rice looked better in silver and black. But yes, Kenyon Drake carved them up. And he did pretty well the second time, despite that having lower numbers. Now, let's check him out in 2020 because that's a little more relevant for us. And let me know, how do you guys think Kenyon Drake's going to do well this year? I think he's going to do well under Gruden, right? Now, what do you think? Do you think who's going to have a better grade next year? Kenyon Drake or Josh Jacobs? Let's think about that. So let's pay attention to Kenyon Drake's overall grade for 2020 just to compare that to Jacobs. So he has a 60. As a receiver, though, I mean, this is as a receiver, I want to know this because that's where he's going to be used a lot, I think, in John Gruden's system. Did pretty well against Seattle, against New England. When you do well against New England, put a star next to that. LA Rams did decent towards the end of the year. And wow, yeah, struggled against Dallas, struggled against Seattle. The thing that worries me about that is Seattle, good linebackers, but really bad front seven. So, I mean, that's a little troublesome because the overall defense, they're not that good, and you still struggle. Dallas, too, in a slump year. They still had Dak in this time, so maybe Arizona didn't give as much time of possession. That could be something to worry about. But you got an overall receiving grade of 47 points in 2020. Rushing grade was about 60, wasn't it? Let's take a look at that again, just so we don't forget. 65. Okay. Now let's look at our man Josh Jacobs, right? And I just want to say, I want to see what you guys are saying right now. Let's just pop you up right here. It's not going to be as big, but it lets me see it. Brandon Riddlespringer. I love that name, Riddlespringer. Is that a real name? Hated it, bro. Tekashi 6ix9ers are the most trash fans in the world. Tekashi 6ix9ers. That is really good. Somebody, can we like make an Adobe Photoshop graphic of that and keep that? Tekashi 6ix9ers. Let's do the colorful teeth. Let's do the freaking weird hair and the snitching. We got to do the snitching too, right? Great running back, not a mobile QB with one starter and O-line returning, run pass block suspect. I think Drake is going to ball out. He's a Charlie Garner clone. I'm late. Boy George Strait. Shout out to Boy George Strait. He's been supporting this channel for a long time. This guy's really cool. I like his comments too. I like what he has to say. Oh man, last night I asked a retired pro NFL player if Carr was a franchise QB. His quick response answer is no. Now let me tell you something about this. I'm sorry, I gotta stop what we're doing to talk about this comment. Now I don't know which retired pro player you asked, but here's the thing. I love players. They put so much effort. They put so much on the line for this game, but they don't always know that much about the game. Now, there have been a lot of players who do not become coaches, and that's because they maybe have good reaction time, good physical skills, but they don't know how to assess talent. That's why they don't get paid to. We live in a capitalist society. If you can do something, you will get paid that amount of money. Money goes to where the value is. In some respects, obviously, there's trouble with that, and there's all kinds of problems with that. But if they really are, I mean, this former NFL player, are they a talent evaluator for a team? You got to ask that. And why are they not? Well, maybe because they can't. Now, if you're a former NFL player, you got a good resume, and you can get hired at a lot more jobs, a lot easier time than me. analyzing players, right? So DC is the truth. Riddle Sprigger. I love that name, and I think he's right. And here's the thing. We already found out this offseason. See, Gruden and Mayock, they leak. They leak that Carr's on the block to find out his value, and they get the talent evaluation from other GMs by them offering trades to them. Then they understand they got a good QB. Derek Carr is going to start this year. And like he said a few years ago, whether we like it or not, he's going to be the starter till he decides not to. I don't think Mariota could beat him out. He's going to have a really bad game, a really bad couple games, and a significant injury. Because even though he was partially injured, Gruden still played him over Mariota against Miami when playoffs were on the line. And yeah, don't like that quick answer. Don't like that player. Josh Jacobs, 76 overall grade, 2020, despite making the Pro Bowl. Compared to Kenyon Drake, let's check him out. So we knew Kenyon Drake's overall running was 65, and Jacobs has never even come close to that. He's 79, 86, and we can talk about Carr when we do the PFF grade. We'll do that actually right after this. Come on, guys, don't shit on your QB, right? I mean, whatever. All right, so Jacobs. So despite the fact that we've seen when we went through the offensive line, every single offensive lineman had a bad run blocking grade against Carolina. Jacobs still had like 3 TDs that game, carried the rock about 30 times, low average, but look at him. He's still putting up a 70 run grade despite the fact that his offensive line is failing him. That's because of the yards after contact, and this just shows you how great and elite Jacobs could be when he's fully healthy. Now he started getting less healthy throughout the year, right? You see Devontae Booker gets thrown in more. His snap counts are a little lower, especially against New England. 35 against New England when they're double covering Waller and we have no one to pass it through. That's a huge concern. Low grade running, really low, primarily pass blocking, it seems like. And that was just a rough game. We really need to analyze that game because we can't get out coached like that again. And to be honest, I hate to say this, Gruden was out coached as an offensive mind that game. Because, even though the Raiders got straight up carved by Burkhead, in the second half of that game, the first half, Abram got a pick and they made a few stops and it looked pretty good. Now, Jacobs against Cleveland, obviously a great game, the weird weather game. LA Chargers, really low snaps, not capable of playing. Tampa Bay, not capable of playing, not capable of getting that many snaps, still banged up, but still putting up an 82 run grade against the Chargers in week 9. Really bad run game grade against Tampa Bay. So that's interesting because against Tampa Bay, he has significantly less snaps, almost half the amount of snaps. And when we looked at the PFF grades of the offensive line, they all had pretty good run blocking grades against Tampa Bay. Granted, we were behind in that game, so we had to run it, and the refs were totally against us in that game. I got a film breakdown of that coming out pretty soon. Now, Atlanta, everybody did trash. He did trash as well, but still 38 snaps. That's interesting to look at. Denver, not too elite, which is odd because I feel like we won. Well, we won that game defensively, but I feel like we really won that game with our run game too. So I find that odd that he has that kind of a low grade against Denver, the first matchup against Denver. And, it's interesting. 30 snaps is considered like splitting it already. So when you look at it, where he like carried the rock the majority of time, you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You only have 8 games out of the whole entire year where you could say Jacobs carried the rock pretty much all the time and he didn't split it with anybody. So he's based on last year, he's already ready to split the rock with somebody like Kenyon Drake. That gives me some optimism. He's already used to it. He knows what it's like in the NFL, the toll it takes on your body. That means he's going to be a team player, man. He's not going to be super pissed off that he's not getting the rock every single time. All right, Raider fans, let me just see what you guys are saying in the chat about this. Do you like PFF? Why or no? What do we think so far? Why or no? Has your opinion changed? In the beginning, everybody said no. Now I'm saying yes or no. What do you think? I'm still going to say why. I mean, but see, I'm saying why because it's all we have. So it's kind of like a desperate why. Like I like PFF because I have nobody else. It's like, you're single. You like this girl just because no one else is like hollering at you, So I think that's kind of the situation that we're looking at here. I'm going to take a look and check out what you guys are saying though. Josh is a beast. We know the truth. Jacobs is great. Message retracted by Boy Straight. Come on. Dumb Raider fans, move on. Right. Move on about Derek Carr. Tom Brady is a top 15 defense every time he's made it to the playoffs and won a Super Bowl. Why? What are you saying why about We Know the Truth? I need to know specifically. I'm very curious. Anyways, well, let's get back to it with the sorry about that. I need to get more professional here. All right, so Jacobs, solid year. I do find it odd he struggled against Tampa Bay despite the good run game, and obviously really not good at pass blocking against Buffalo, not good at pass blocking against Kansas City and the Chargers. That shows you why we have Jalen Richard, and now I think Theo Riddick will get some pass blocking snaps for the Raiders. Now let's check him out receiving, because that's really where I think Kenyon Drake is going to take over for him. And we see against Carolina, he has about 4 receptions, 5 targets though. So they tried to get him going, against Indianapolis and just couldn't get it going with reception. So that shows we need Kenyon Drake a part of this roster as a receiving back, a little bit better than Jalen Richard. Hopefully he could block as well too. His grade's not better than Jalen Richard pass blocking, but it's about 5 points off. So he could come up in that way. Now, before we talk about QB, just any of you guys got any thoughts? Why or in for PFF? Come on, get more people involved in here. Let me know why or in. We got Y from We Know the Truth, because it gives us something to talk about. Okay, do a capital Y, because I thought you meant why, like you're saying why, asking a question. PFF is flawed. Boy George straight. You know, everything's flawed statistically. That there's an element of truth to that. And I could see a 2 fullback play where Ingold and Jacobs truck people and Drake goes off. Eddie Lento, I would love to see this, but we're not playing Air Force football. Okay, I'm sorry. We're not going to do the wing T. Jalen Richard has always had ball security issues, but very explosive. We saw what he does. The New Orleans Saints game is a great encapsulation of Jalen Richard. Fumbles the ball, but then we'll make explosive plays. That's just what it is, man. We know the truth. I love it. I love it. Guys, let me know what you think, though, man. What do we think about Derek Carr's PFF grade? Y or N? Here we go. 84. Okay, wow. So this is his whole career, man. 50 grade in 2014. And so here's the statistical analysis that PFF has not taken into account. And I think we could see it pretty evidently with Derek Carr, which is the fact that they don't talk about the surroundings. In 2014, who were his number 1 receivers? Well, an old Jordy Nelson, and we had Brandon LaFell before he got hurt, Seth Roberts too, and then Jared Cook. Jared Cook was all he had to throw it to practically in 2018. 2014, his main receivers are James Jones and I believe Seth Roberts wasn't a part of the team in 2014. James Jones was his number 1 target, and Michael Rivera too, a tight end who's no longer in the NFL anymore too. So that tells you a lot. So Derek Carr didn't have any weapons really. You know, his run game's led by I think it's Maurice Jones-Drew, and a combination of him and Darren McFadden in 2014. Still has Marcel Reese. It's really rough, man. 2015, 2016. Let's just talk about the Gruden era. We could talk all day about Derek Carr, but we got other players to get to. We still got to get to the defense too. And we're already running about 40 minutes in this video, which is fine though, because you know what I like doing? I like talking about the Raiders. So if you guys are down to keep talking about the Raiders, I'll be here all day. Although eventually we have to go to work and do some schoolwork. 2020, his grade against Carolina is also low. And you know what? I want to talk about this Carolina game because I was thinking about it. That game, I know it's the first game of the year. You're starting 2 rookie receivers. But we've seen the offensive line doesn't do well. The Jacobs didn't do well. Well, he had a good grade. But he didn't have a good average, you know. Part of that is because of the offensive line. But now we see Carr is not having too hot of a grade, even against Carolina. Now, when you're dealing with Carolina, that team, they had a really young defense. They have Tahir Whitehead as one of their linebackers, so you should be doing a lot better, in my opinion. Week 1, that game is a little too close for me. If you're a Raiders fan, to me, that game feels like the Jets game, even though it didn't come down to a miracle play. It feels like that to me. New Orleans, Carr actually had a really rough first half against New Orleans, but what's great about that game is how he stayed with it And what I love the most is 3rd and short, you do a long pass to your rookie receiver, Henry Ruggs, to seal the game. That's the kind of stuff I like to see. But he still picked up the dub, and the offense is on the ball a lot that game. Look at that, 80 snaps there. That's saying something. That's pretty crazy. And Kansas City week 5, I find this odd. I think this is because of the interception in the first quarter. They have him at 75 against Kansas City, 71 passing. I mean, to me, that's just complete BS. He got out of the pocket a couple times. We see those 4 runs there. He picked up a couple first downs with the run, and he had just an electrifying game. I don't know if that's just the emotion that we have as Raider fans watching that game. I'm going to be real. I did not expect them. I was hoping and praying that they were going to win that game. I did not realistically expect that to happen week 5. I thought maybe if they did have a shot, it would be after they had faced him one time, get a little more experience, and test him again a second time around in week 11. Initially, just going into it. But I think he just his grade probably wasn't that great because some of those passes that he had, like the Aguilar touchdown, the Ruggs touchdown, they're kind of wide open there. Granted, it's still a good deep ball to put it on the money when you have such a new receiver, 2 new receivers who you don't know their speed entirely. I think it deserves a higher grade than that, but maybe I'm just being an emotional Raider fan. What do you guys think? Higher grade against the Chiefs, 75. Now, this is a little bit of a concern, New England. We got to really look back at this game because I think everybody did bad this game. Especially offensively, everybody did bad. Defensively, we'll see in a moment. I'm going to guess and say we did well defensively against the pass against New England, but against the run, we did horrible. Denver was an all-star game. So he had some solid throws there on it. Obviously, the defense did well and helped him out a lot that game. So I feel like that grade's a little inflated, to be honest. Cleveland, bad game because it was a terrible weather game. That makes a lot of sense. LA, really close, but I think he gets a higher grade than that. I find it odd. Kansas City week 5, LA week 9. I think those are great games by Derek Carr because of the runs that he had. And I just thought he just was on the money. Improvised throws against LA, especially in week 9, and the deep ball against KC. That's a really weird grade. Tampa Bay, not too bad of a grade for the number 1 defense in the NFL. And we saw, against the, for the run blocking, we did really well against Tampa Bay, but everything else is kind of bad. Even Darren Waller struggled a little bit against them too, according to PFF, even though I think he had a better game than that. Atlanta, New England, his worst games. Cleveland, obviously this makes no sense because of the weather, and PFF has not taken that into account. So that is how hey, PFF's not always perfect. They're not taking account all the variables, right? Atlanta, though, and New England being Carr's worst games, to me, that makes a lot of sense. Just watching it, our feeling after the game, yes, that makes sense. That was one of the worst games. Didn't really play second time against the Chargers. And Miami, I would give Carr a way better grade than that. I think that's a 90 game for him. Now, what's interesting is week 11 against Kansas City is his greatest game. So even though he picked up the dub week 5, no interceptions against Kansas City in week 11. And he must have just been, according to PFF, more on the money with every single throw. Like I was saying, week 5, Kansas City, people are kind of wide open, blown coverages. This was just pinpoint accuracy. There's a couple plays when you look at Derek Carr where he steps up into the pocket, makes what I think are extended plays, even though he's not necessarily going out of the pocket. He's moving up in the pocket in certain ways. Laser accuracy. I love it. All right, let's see what you guys are saying so far in the chat about this. Aguilar, he was 99% done in the NFL and Carr revived his career. That is totally true. What do you guys think? Aguilar, was it a mistake not to pay the money for him? Should we have paid the money for Aguilar? Yes or no? Let me know what you think in the chat. Pay the money for Aguilar. Should we have paid Aguilar? Now, I know I'm spelling that wrong. Should we have paid Aguilar? I'm glad we didn't pay Aguilar because we got Unique Ngakoue because of that, so it saves up some money. But I want to know what you all think. We don't really have a receiver of that caliber that's proven yet on our team. Now, Eddie Linto's making a good point. In Atlanta, it seemed like Gruden was changing things up and tried to get tricky. Now, one of my first ever videos, actually, if you want to check it out, and it's very low quality, as a matter of fact, but it's about Raheem Morris and Gruden, how Raheem Morris was Gruden's, like, one of his... Oh, I actually took that video off. Okay, I'll put it back up, though. But Raheem Morris was one of Gruden's defensive assistants when he was in Tampa Bay, so he knew him really well. I was actually predicting that the Raiders might get caught slipping on that game. It was a really low quality produced video. I wasn't a good YouTuber back then, so a lot of people didn't watch it. I think it has like 100 views. Anyways, Derek Carr, 84 overall, 9th best QB in the NFL with their PFF grade, 79 in 2019, so is getting better. Despite missing one whole game, has roughly the same amount of snaps, so that tells me the offense is putting up longer possessions. And yeah, Raider fans really don't think Nelson Aguilar is going to do much. Looks like we got people saying, hey, we got Icy Nate saying John Brown is better, he doesn't drop balls, and we got other people saying, hey, he dropped hella balls, John Brown. So what I worry the most about with this John Brown versus Aguilar thing, and so I guess we should get into receiver PFF grades, but what I worry the most about is the fact these like jump balls. Now, there's a couple of balls like Aguilar made against Tampa Bay, middle of the field, the first touchdown they made, where it was just, he had to hop a little bit in the middle of the field and twist his body and catch it, reach up, and Carr had to throw it a little high, and John Brown is just so much shorter. That 2 inches is a really big deal. I don't know if he makes that same catch that Aguilar makes, so middle of the field stuff, I'm worried about it. Boy George Strait, don't retract your comments, dude. Come on, we want to hear what you got to say. Go ahead and say it. Should we have paid Aguilar, guys? Why or no? Why or no? All right. Carr needs do or die experience. He needs more pressure. I think he had plenty of pressure in 2018. We had no squad behind him. Mariota, though, just real quick, we got to just say he had a good PFF grade in that game. 4.540, so he's only about 0.5 off for Kenyon Drake. That's a pretty good speed. But when you look at it, Derek Carr actually has a pretty good 40-yard time if they still have it. 4.69. Now, I saw a different one that's a little quicker than that, so I'm actually skeptical about that grade, but he's not slow either. Mariota, 65 snaps, good grade. Really, I find it odd, though, that he gets an 82 grade on that, even though he threw a pick that was totally like his fault pick, just like bonehead decision. But yet they're giving Carr a weak grade on week 5, weaker than that, 79, when he just threw one pick and then balled out the rest of the game. So I'm a little skeptical on this grade. I don't think you grade Mariota that high because of that. He lost us the game with that pick. Part of that was because, yeah, he doesn't get as many practice reps, but this is the NFL. We don't make too many excuses for people. All right, so John Brown. Let's talk about him, right? And let's go back, man. Let's go. Should we have paid Aguilar? Type Y or no. People are saying no. That's the consensus. John Brown was not healthy last year. That is true by Icy Nate. And you got to get somebody to put me on one of your shows. A lot of Raider Nation supports pretty much every Raiders YouTuber. Hey, I'm welcome to be on any show. If people want me on, I'm not going to pressure anybody and fight and beg for time. But we'll see what happens. So, yeah, if anybody wants to put me on, yes, I'm totally down. Anyways, let's check this out. Going through every single potential starter. So, receiver, I can't go through everybody because I don't think everybody's going to start. PFF, do they hate the Raiders? We'll find out. Let's see how much they hated the Bills last year. Now, John Brown, even though on limited snaps, we're seeing 628, didn't play every game. Right now, we see that's about 8 games, so he played half the season. And some of these games, he only gets about 30 snaps on about 2 of them. So, can't run block, I'm a little skeptical about that. Maybe on a sweep, he could do a type of a blindside, not blindside block, but, one of those where you hit somebody on the side. Not technically blindside where you pull off a penalty. I think he could pull off those kind of sweep and stretch blocks, hopefully. And we have offensively not what we're looking for. Let's check out receiving grades, what he did. Now, right away, not many targets on most games. I did a film breakdown of John Brown. You could check it out. I tried to choose games where he had a lot of targets because I felt like those matter the most. And what's really insane is 10 targets against Seattle and Baltimore. Now that's really intense. I mean, when you think about it, outside of Darren Waller, we don't have anybody we gave 10 targets to. We could check today, but we don't. So coaching staff, Sean McDermott, a really good coach. He sees something in John Brown, despite moving on from him because he has other players. You naturally have to do this in the NFL. Trusted him to give him play designs, targets 10 times against really tough teams in Baltimore and Seattle. That says a lot to me. Receiving grade, good against Seattle too, good against Baltimore when he got those 10 targets. That speaks volumes to me. That shows that, you know, usually people have inflated grades. Like we saw Derek Carrier, 9 snaps, high grade, and like 2 targets. But in this case, wow, 20 targets, high grade. And we'll check out Willie Snead next if you guys want to check that out. Against the Raiders, did really well too. You know, I think I remember that. 42 yards though, so short passes, that's decent. And when we look at it too, against Miami, that's a really good defense, pulled up a really good grade and a really good drop rate. A little worried about Kansas City, although he only had 3 targets. And I'm also a little worried about Indianapolis, because Indianapolis is one of the better defense. I would rank them above Baltimore last year, and I would rank them above Miami, in my own personal opinion. I think Buffalo, they play Miami twice a year. They know that team a little better, so they're going to fare better against Miami than teams outside of their division. Kansas City outside of their division. And, you know, the Bills just all around had a rough game, and Kansas City was looking for vengeance. They had just lost to the Raiders. They're really pissed off, and so, yeah. Maybe that's why. Defense probably got their ass chewed out after they lost to the Raiders. So don't want to make excuses, but John Brown, this is a really good grade. Playoffs, Kansas City too, struggled. So my only concern is it seems like Kansas City knows how to handle John Brown. He had about 7 targets between 2 games. Granted, he wasn't necessarily their starter, but 4.34 speed. Henry Ruggs, 4.25. I like this, man. I like this pickup. I think he's insurance policy mainly for Henry Ruggs. I don't think he's going to have an Aguilar role that people expect. I think that's going to go to Bryan Edwards. But let's go ahead and talk about another receiver. But let me see what people are saying right now. I just want to see what you guys are saying in the chat. We got a couple comments. Brown, Ruggs, Renfro equals Plan B. So Renfro is the Plan B, according to Call 10 Chit. And New England did have a plan for Waller, and Gruden did not go with the Plan B. That is very true. I don't know how the delay is on this chat. I feel like you guys are saying things a little after me. I tried to improve the latency, but we'll see what happens. Let's get through it, because we're almost 1 hour in. We're almost done with offense. We know the truth. Tall, you're right. We need to hold the court on Gruden with Wi-Fi. On Gruden Wi-Fi. We do need to hold the court on Gruden because there's a lot of coaches in the NFL who do really well. Look at the Browns this past year. Okay. I'm not going to go too deep into the rest of the receivers besides Ruggs and Renfro. Or besides Edwards and Ruggs. Willie Snead, 69 grade, but we see only 600 snaps. That's similar to John Brown, so technically he did a little better. Zay Jones, not many snaps at all, but a really low grade. To me, that worries me overall, because you're typically like Derek Carrier, is supposed to do better when you have lower snaps. So that worries me. Bryan Edwards, we can talk about him a little bit. Only 1 year, 69. I like that they had him in the backfield for a few snaps. They brought that up. There's 3 snaps where you could see Bryan Edwards go in the backfield, and I think that's really cool. That means that he must be really good running after the catch, and it kind of like flips the defense out, makes them think a little bit. I hope maybe he's capable of doing some reverses. We don't have his 40 time here, but it seems like they might use him in pretty interesting ways. So where Bryan Edwards had the most targets, not many, against New England. Surprisingly, we've seen everybody did bad against New England. Carr, the offensive line, Jacobs, Waller. Bryan Edwards, though, had some plays, and we know he got banged up during the New England game, so that's quite unfortunate. Who knows how much they had planned for him in that game, what he could have done if he hung around. Struggled to stay in against Denver, and then, kind of really out of it, active on the roster, but no targets. for the majority of the season, besides Denver at the end of the year. And he left on a banger against Denver, a team that really wanted to pick up that W, a coach who really wanted to prove something after having a bad year. So a lot to be optimistic about there. Renfrow, just real quick, throughout the years, solid 74 grade. Obviously, he's primarily in the slot, but he went pretty wide this year compared to previous years. And one thing about Renfrow is pretty decent run blocker against Tampa Bay and against the LA Chargers. Now, receiving grade, just real quick, 6 targets against Tampa Bay, did pretty decently. That's really good. He has had some fumble issues, but they just stick out with a sore thumb because the Raiders defense can't hold anybody. So when you fumble, you know the other team's getting a touchdown for sure. So that's a little bit like, okay, I don't put too much on him for that, you know? And everybody, I don't know how my music is doing in this stream. Hopefully it's doing all right. Okay. And really standout games. Let's see, where you had the most targets was against Tampa Bay and Buffalo. Now that worries me. Against Buffalo, you have some of the most targets and you have your worst grade. Granted, we got owned that game all around. And Indianapolis is the same. So I don't know whether they didn't have any alternatives or anywhere else to go. And so they're kind of forcing it to him. Or if Renfrow just couldn't hang against those specific teams. Although we see against Atlanta, 9 targets. Wow. Decent grade when everybody else is doing bad. A lot of promise there. We do need him to put on some more weight, although this is pretty decent. So 5'10", 180 is good, is decent in the NFL. But typically you're running like a John Brown 4.340 if you're 5'10", 180. So Renfrow either needs to pick up the strength, I think, get a little bulkier, put on some more weight, or pick up the speed, hopefully gain some lower body strength, able to go on some deep passes like he did against the Chargers last year. Henry Ruggs, one of the worst grades on our team, lined up in the slot a little bit. I like that. I like how he's primarily wide, but we're still willing to move him around a little bit. His makeup is a little bit like an inverted Renfrow. Renfrow had, as we saw, 200 outside, but 300 in the slot. Ruggs is the opposite. Now, Kansas City, one of his best games for sure. 2 deep passes off the top of our head, and I think as Raiders fans, we have ingrained in our memory. We know these 2 catches that were fantastic. By the way, pick yourself up a margarita. I got the Hawaiian shirt going. All right. Jets, despite the miracle play, 4 targets. He had some fumbles in that game too. So it was like, if it wasn't for that miracle play, we were straight up about to lose that game because of the inefficient offense overall and Ruggs fumbling the ball. We were going to straight up lose that game outside of Waller and nobody balled out offensively. So, man, that worries me. The fumbling, the injuries. Okay, so my brother is a Dallas Cowboys fan, right? We watched the draft together. I wanted CeeDee Lamb, just like a lot of Raiders fans did, mainly because it was mocked to us. So don't let the mock drafts fool you. They try to ingrain certain thoughts into your head and push narratives. That's what they do. So I fell for the narrative and wanted CeeDee Lamb over Ruggs, even though I think Ruggs fits Gruden's system a lot better. He wanted Ruggs. And once we find out the Raiders drafted Ruggs, and the Cowboys draft CeeDee, all of a sudden he's pro CeeDee, I'm pro Ruggs. But his one concern, which is a good concern, he's going to get hurt. What happened week 1? Well, he got hurt, right? So he got 5 targets, try to get him ready in week 1. And yes, got hurt right away. Lowered the speed so you don't do as well against New Orleans. You pick it up against Kansas City because he had a little bit of rest, didn't play too many snaps against New Orleans. And Tampa Bay, honestly, didn't do much, virtually absent in that game. And one thing that was interesting, we had Rico Gafford in there at the same time as Ruggs against Tampa Bay. Don't know if something was going on with Aguilar, but I think that could be a combination that we use with John Brown and Ruggs. And honestly, there was a non-PI call on Rico Gafford that happened that game. Quite unfortunate. I think we would have done a lot better had the officiating been a little more fair. Cleveland, everybody did bad. Doesn't do well against Denver. That's a concern, although they do have some veteran corners. Kansas City the second time, virtually absent. I was thinking about this the other day. Derek Carr's best game of the year, PFF style, statistically, whatever, even emotionally, 2020 was against Kansas City, week 11. From an individual standpoint, it's Derek Carr's best game, and Ruggs is like not involved at all. he serves as just a decoy. And here's another thing about PFF. Do we even like consider him being a decoy with PFF? Are they taking that into account in their grade? I don't know. And we see Denver picked it up a little bit. 65 grade. Atlanta, everybody did bad. Jets, we just talked about that. Indianapolis, everybody did bad, but not at receiver, so only Ruggs did. So Ruggs didn't have a good year last year, according to PFF. Now, I want to know, what do you think about this? I mean, we'll see what people have to say in the comments. You know, is PFF right? Is PFF right on Ruggs? So yes or no in the chat. Let me know what you think. Is PFF right on Ruggs? Because even if we don't respect PFF, we hate what they think, this is what coaches use. This is what talent evaluators use. This is what people around the NFL think. I mean, I know the NFL put out a highlight reel of Ruggs for his rookie year. It was very short. The NFL does not think Ruggs did well last year, and the rest of the NFL and a lot of the news analysts trash on Ruggs and trash on the Raiders for picking Ruggs, and they consider it a mistake. So whether or not we think, hey, that's fair, that's not fair, cut him some slack, hey, this is what the rest of the people think. They look down on them because of this PFF grade. And when you look at the production, especially week 11 in the Kansas City games, Ruggs was absent and he has a low grade that game. He didn't make a big play that stands out to me, and he has a low grade. So so maybe there's some truth to it. I don't know. Let's see what people think. Why or no? Let me know in the chat. Are they right about Ruggs? Maybe you don't like PFF overall, but are they right about Ruggs last year? Let me know in the chat. Let's look at some comments. Jacobs getting stopped on 4th down. That happened a couple times because Gruden makes it too obvious when he's running up the middle with Jacobs. 3rd and short, 4th and short. I always can instantly tell when Gruden's going to run it up the middle with Jacobs. It really frustrates me because if I can tell, the defense can tell. That's why we get stopped. That's why we got straight worked against Atlanta on that 4th and 1 in the first drive of the game. Strength over weight. People want to see Renfrow put on some more muscle than speed. Renfrow messes around and gets some good loving and arrives at camp with a beer gut. You know what? After his past 2 years, he deserves a little beer gut because he's been pretty solid for us all around. Chiefs game, the win, not the loss. Yes, I think the win. From an individual perspective, though, I think Carr did better week 11. I think PFF is right on that, and I think it's because of the interception week 5 against Kansas City. Talkin shit. Ruggs and Carr had no chemistry. I remember one game he had Ruggs deep in the corner end zone. Ruggs was looking for ball. Yeah, check out my Ruggs breakdown. A little bit of that. There's a little bit of that I put in there, and some of it is just Ruggs not bringing it in. And a couple of times, like, it's just that Carr doesn't know how deep Ruggs is going to go. And Ruggs seems like he underestimated Carr. In my opinion, he thought that the ball's going to sail a little shorter, so he would slow down when he needs to just keep running. And I think they really calibrated it week 5, against the Chiefs, but they just never lived up to that again. So Raider for Life doesn't care about PFF, thinks it's a joke to grade a system of people who don't even like the Raiders at all. Well, then why is Carr ranked the 9th best QB in the NFL? So Ruggs had a great rookie year, according to Talk and Cheat. Taylor thinks, hey, PFF is right on Ruggs. You know what? I'm going to give it a Y too. And Raider J Football does not like PFF. Eddie Linto had his best game against New York. Well, does the best game against New York include the fumbles or without the fumbles? Because if you include the fumbles, it's a horrible game. I like Ruggs still. I agree with you. But PFF, I think there's some validity to what they're saying, unfortunately. And I hope Ruggs has a great grade next year. And I hope, even if he doesn't have a great grade, we can look at the film and say, hey, screw them. But let's check it out. Let's go to the defense side of the ball. Now, Nevin Lawson, can we start the Nevin Lawson hype train? I like Nevin Lawson. Like, I think the Raiders are higher on him than we think. They're paying him $1.9 million this year, and $900 of it is guaranteed, $900K. So that means he's going to be on the roster the whole year. He might even start a few games like he did last year. Obviously, he struggled PFF-wise, 55 grade. Not looking too good. I'm going to speed through the defense because this is getting a little too long for me, and I got some stuff I got to take care of. But lined up in the slot a little bit, mainly wide, so I don't think he's going to fill that LaMarcus Joyner role for us. We definitely need somebody too. Don't think it's going to be him. Amik Robertson, limited snaps, about 35. last year, bad grade, only 29 snaps, really, one wide. So they look at him as a slot corner, and they admitted that didn't pan out openly. That tells me a lot. That tells me maybe they might move on from him, but a 4th round pick, that's actually pretty high. That's like, Crosby and Renfro level. That's John Simpson level. So I don't think they could cut him at all this year. I don't think he's a candidate, but I think this is his last year to prove something. And Keyshawn Nixon has kind of hung around the team for a few years. Low grade, still played a little bit. Honestly, whenever he's in, though, huge liability, so I am not surprised by this low 44 PFF grade. Whenever he's in, they target him, and it must be for a reason. So PFF might be right on that. Now, Trayvon Mullen, this is something that I strongly disagree with, and we're going to open it up a little bit more here. So his snaps, 43 at the slot, primarily wide, 800. I love the fact that this guy stays healthy, able to keep playing. We know he comes from talent. He knows a lot of good players in the NFL since his rookie year coming out of Clemson. 2nd round pick. I think this is one of the best Mayock draft picks since he's been around. They traded up to get him. Practiced with AB his first year. So whether or not we like AB or not, practice one of the best. And to me, coverage grade, New England, really surprised that he had a really good game against New England. We saw not many other people did, but they beat us through the run. Like I said, our run defense was trash against New England, which is unfortunate because it's usually quite decent. We can't let Rex Burkhead own us in a game and be a playoff team. So Kansas City, not too hot. Week 11, though, I think it's a little higher because of the interception right before halftime. And Denver, despite us destroying Denver, didn't have a good game. And I kind of find that pretty odd. But, that's how it goes. There was a lot of forced fumbles and sacks. I think Colin Asib had like a great game against Denver. So the Chargers game, he has his lowest grade of the year. Now, I remember Gruden after the Chargers game going on the press conference and saying, hey, we don't agree with any of these PI calls. And I agree with Gruden there. They had a bunch of bullshit PI calls on him in that game. And Gruden even admits it in the press conference. I'm surprised he actually didn't even get fined for that, because I think that usually is what happens when you do make these comments. But yeah. Bad game there. I don't agree with it, though. I think he had a stronger game than that. Miami, I wonder, like, if we look through, like, how well... This is a decent grade against Miami. Decent, it's like a D grade, but still, like, it's still okay. We got to take what we can get. I wonder how bad his grade was against Fitzpatrick compared to Tua. Probably a lot better against Tua. Best game of the year against the Jets in New England and Atlanta. Really surprising that he had a good game against Atlanta. It shows you that we just need a number 2 corner. This guy can be solid for us. Wide. We need a slot. We need another person outside. Hopefully Nevin Lawson can step up. Or, of course, the guy we have invested the most in. We have invested the most in at cornerback. And one of the highest invested people in the whole entire team. So I'm getting a comment, oh, stop it. What do I need to stop? What am I saying that's so outlandish here? So, Deshaun Roberts, Ruggs would be good this year. Can't talk about secondary with the front 4 and get into the QB. That is true. But PI, I guess you have to do it if the front 4 is not getting to him. Gruden needs an offensive coordinator. Greg Olson's supposed to be the offensive coordinator, and I do think sometimes he does call plays, although it is primarily Gruden. Can't keep making it so obvious on the short Jacobs runs. Mullen and Arnett did good in press coverage. They both struggled when they played off their man. That's true. Cover 2, we saw Damon Arnett struggle a lot in cover 2. It's like something we could all think of right off the top of our heads. Miami game and Kansas City game. Those are just the worst games of any cornerback on our team. And Denver too. When you do... Now, what worries me a lot about this is doing poorly against Teddy Bridgewater, who might not even be a starter next year. Doing poorly against New England Cam, who, let's be honest, at that point is running the ball, not that great of a passer at that point in the season, and it showed the rest of the year. And doing bad the last week when he had he had 17 snaps. They took him out started giving other people reps. I don't know if he got hurt. I was on a flight while I watched that game, I remember. But when you have a bad grade against Drew Lock off 17 snaps, that worries me a lot because Drew Lock also might not even be a starting QB next year. So, and then you have a 30 grade against Miami, and I think the bulk of that comes from the Ryan Fitzpatrick pass against Miami. But 30, if you were playing against Tua most of the game, you should have a higher grade than that. And Kansas City week 11, obviously Patrick Mahomes, Damon Arnett had to cover Chelsea, Kelsey a lot, and didn't have a good game. Granted, they had one bullshit PI call on him, but Damon Arnett needs to improve. I know he had the broken thumb, couldn't work out as much, didn't have enough power, but it seemed like mentally and just understanding the scheme, he was a little lost. Granted, we got to take all these defensive rankings with a grain of salt because we were dealing with Pauly G last year. Coming up on an hour and 10 minutes, let's go and take a look at the rest of this roster. Carl Joseph last year. I'm going to go through a lot of these quick because I need to kind of wrap it up. 54 grade, did better with the Raiders. That's something to be very optimistic about. And did worse with the Browns. So either it wasn't a good scheme fit and maybe just, he's from the Raiders, probably more comfortable in that locker room too. Hopefully it's an emotional thing that could help him out. In the box primarily, did play slot a little bit. So that's interesting to think how he could fare if we desperately need someone to play slot. We don't have LaMarcus Joyner anymore. That's a big problem that I'm really worried about. All right, our favorite guy, the attitude. I love this guy's style of play, but I don't like this guy's grade. 35 grade, one of the worst graded safeties in the NFL. Now, Arnett is actually a better tackler. I'm going to go to the chat right now because I saw something a little interesting. I think Arnett's a better tackler than we think. I think the broken thumb had a big deal. But when you look at him, it wasn't the fact that his tackling wasn't the problem. It was the fact that he'd get a concussion after tackling. And I don't know if that's a strength and conditioning problem. It could just be luck, though. These concussions are all just craps, right? It just could happen to anybody at any moment. Like Derek Carr getting straight rocked by Devin White and not getting a concussion. I mean, it looked like he should have got one, but he didn't. So you just never know when it's going to happen. Abram Arnett, I hope they go off. I hope he stays healthy. And I got something coming out on Arnett pretty soon. So some things to be excited about him. But honestly, it's hard to find, just going through the film, it's hard to find bright spots for Arnett. Abram, it's a little easier because like I was saying, against New England, I know he has a low grade here, and it's the tackling and against the run getting carved up by Burkhead. But against coverage, I think he played Cam really well in the first half, and that's why he got that pick. He did try to put some pressure on him at times, and then he kind of mixed it up at other times and recognized like, hey, with Cam, I think I'm going to have to maybe fake that I'm going to rush him and then go back in coverage and get the pick. So sorry about that little hang up there. I just had some technical difficulties. So bad grade against New England, bad grade against the Chiefs in both games. Indianapolis is worst game, despite the fact that he had a pretty good amount of snaps, 58. So 58 means they didn't start him the whole game. They probably brought in Heath a little bit of the game, I think I remember. And Chargers, lion's share of snaps, low grade. Now, granted, against Kansas City in week 11, they didn't let him practice all week. They ripped him off just because he was near Tim Brown. That was BS, I think. Didn't even let him play against Tampa Bay. I think if we had him against Tampa Bay, Brady's a little scared because I don't think Abrams afraid to crack Brady. And that's the thing I like about Carl Joseph, too. Check out my Carl Joseph breakdown. He cracks Aaron Rodgers, not afraid to crack the superstar players, risk a penalty. Who cares? Let's just do it. Yes, Abram was coming off an injury. This is pretty much his rookie year. Miami, he does a little better, and I think that's great. It gives some optimism. And Atlanta actually doing a lot better than we think. And I remember us against Atlanta, me thinking, okay, the offense dropped the ball against Atlanta. It wasn't the defense that game. And I think that grade is kind of indicative of that there. So let's keep it going. Let's see who else we want to look at. We want to look at Jeff Heath, highest graded safety on our team from last year. in the box majority of the time when you're looking at it compared to slot or wide corner, but free safety playing the lion's share of snaps. 72 grade. I think he could do pretty well. Obviously, I think his grades are a little inflated because of the Kansas City interception. And I also think that if he had more snaps, you would see a lower grade. He's kind of getting the Derek Carrier benefit, low snaps. Great against Denver, great against Kansas City, struggled against New England, and also not too hot against Atlanta. But you're dealing with Matt Ryan. But Abram did well against Atlanta, so take that as you would. Nicholas Morrow, like I was saying, 13th best coverage linebacker last year. Really good grade overall. Needs to get a little bit better against the run. I think key games like the Indianapolis game and the New England game bring that grade down, although a lot better than we think. Corey Littleton, though, however, one of the worst graded. After being with one of the 7th best, you go from 7th to 67. So started from the top, now we're at the bottom. It's the opposite of the Drake song, right? So we got to figure this out. We know the heights that this guy could live up to. We got to get rid of this red here. New Orleans struggled despite 60 snaps. New England struggled. Buffalo picking it up a little bit in coverage. And I'm looking at coverage because that's where we use this guy. Run defense didn't do well any time besides against Atlanta and against the Chargers the second time around. That's a lot to worry about. Bad coaching. Yes, Gus Bradley is going to bring these numbers up. I'm going to hope that this is just a bad year. His 40 speed is not as high as I thought, so I wonder if that is going to impact how we graded him as a coverage linebacker. Hopefully the scheme fit could adjust where he doesn't have to rely on just straight up physical speed most of the time. And I want to see, we don't have Nicholas Morrow's 40 time, but Nick Kwiatkowski doing worse on our defense, but had that outlier year in 2017, right? Coming in, filling in for injury, which is what we saw. And 4.7 40 time, so he's as fast as Corey Littleton. So that's a lot to look forward to. Did really well against Kansas City, part of the reason why we won early on. And honestly didn't do bad until the end of the year. He had to come back from injury. We know he was out a few games mid-year. And especially he got injured the first game, right? And then he was out a little bit. Tampa Bay struggled. Jets struggled. That worries me because if you're getting carved up by Adam Gase, you really got to worry about what you're doing. So hopefully he gets a lot better next year. Littleton did have coronavirus last year. Some games he was straight up playing with a mask on. That worries me. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up by looking at just Farrell, Crosby, Nassib, and Unique Ngakoue next. So Unique Ngakoue, bad against the run. I have a video where you can see Mayock pointing that out, him coming out of the draft. But all we need him to do is rush the passer. Last year, he did great against Indianapolis. That's a good offensive line he did great on with a good head coach, Frank Wright. And Tennessee did really well too. Struggled against Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers, he's a little more of a scrambler QB, can extend plays. So it would be nice to see him have a good grade against a QB like that, but at least we're going to get pressure on these QBs who aren't as mobile. I know Tannehill's mobile, but I guess he did well in that game. And at the same time, Baltimore playing in the playoffs. Tennessee gets the better of him the second time. Cleveland, not too hot. Granted, so this guy played Tennessee 3 times in 1 year. That's hilarious. I got you, Tannehill. Hated that. Pittsburgh struggled. Decent veteran offensive line there. But Big Ben, I think you got to get some pressure on him somehow. He's pretty slow, not a mobile guy. New England, that gives me some hope. He did well against against Cam Newton, mobile QB there. Gardner Minshew, too. I think that might have been a Nick Foles situation, though. Who knows that? Or no, not sure who was starting QB for Jacksonville in Week 15. We'll have to look that up. But decent grade against the run. You're going to have 54, but pass rush still in the 70s. That's going to be the best in our team. It gives us at least somebody who we know for a fact is competent pass rushing. We know Crosby had a bad grade in 2020. 2019, though, really good grade. And we know he had a bad grade in 2020 because he was injured most of the time. And that's kind of unfair to him. Didn't have anybody to pick up the slack for him. Did well against Denver towards the end of the year. Struggled against Carolina in the beginning. struggled against Atlanta. But when we look at 2019, man, good year. Cincinnati, obviously, Cincinnati not too hot of a team, but did really well. Chargers did well. I was at that night game. It was lit. I was so drunk. It was so fun. So I think what they're worried about mainly. Now, I know he has some good and bad here, right? Good against Atlanta, really bad against the Chargers against the run. Let's take a look at 2019 instead for this. Overall run grade 58, pass rush 67. So they are worried about him on run downs. I could see him only coming in on pass rush downs like Unique Ngakoue. And we need another, so we might need another run defending edge person, especially if we put Farrell inside. But I think in the end, he just has to get better on that. Hopefully coming off an injury, he does a little bit better. He has the motor, like people are saying in the chat. So I think he could go off next year if he has a rotation, if he stays healthy. This is going to be the last person I look at because I want to wrap this up. Clelin Ferrell, 76 grade in 2020, 62 in 2019, getting better over time. And before I go into Clelin Ferrell, I just want to see what you guys are saying in the chat. So, blame Paul Gunther for Nick Quigg for Corey Littleton, I believe, or because 54 was Raekwon McMillan last year. So I'm not sure what you mean by 54. Max had Marinelli, but Max regressed. They all did. Don't wrap it up, Willie. Willie has to wrap it up at some point, and he has to wrap it up in the bedroom. Okay, anyways, if Gus doesn't fix the linebackers, it is going to be a long season by tall can shit. I believe that is true. We got to do something, man. We can't struggle on defense next year. If Gus Bradley has a bad year, do you still keep him? What do you think in the chat? That's going to be the last voting thing. If the defense still struggles, keep Bradley. If D struggles, I mean, we don't want this much turnover on our team, but Y or N in the chat, keep Bradley. Even if they struggle next year, I really hope they don't struggle next year. We don't even want to think about the possibility that they can't stop anybody next year again. Because that would mean that it might be just the players at that point. Or maybe Bradley's not the guy to fit these players. Then you just made a wrong hire. So that would be on the GM and Gruden at that point. I really hope they get better next year. But let me know in the chat, Y or N. Do we still keep Bradley if the defense struggles? We got to see what happens, though. Unless he's the clear problem. Paulie G, I really don't like some of these plays he does. Whenever I see the defensive end in coverage, I've seen Crosby in coverage. I've seen Nassib in coverage, and I've thought, damn, dude, this is not... They're throwing it there then, right? Like, I mean, that's what I would do. And it, outside of Drew Lock throwing that pick to Nassib, it never, ever worked out. And it would be really hard, like people are saying, to have another bad year. People think that a secondary coach is going to do well for the Raiders this year. I see Nate. Eddie Linto, Clee is going to have to pay for the bag because, yes, this is a prove-it year for Clelin Ferrell and Jonathan Abram. 2 years left, 2021, 2022. They can just let him go in 2022 if it's not going great. So it is a big year for them, man. Now, let's just check this out. 2020 had a lot better time. He run defending, one of the best run defenders on the line on our whole entire team. And in the NFL, when you look at these rankings, he's actually ranked pretty high, top 15. Run defender and top 15 overall defensive end. So I know people don't like him. They think, hey, maybe we should have waited in the draft, pick up a Montez Sweat, something like that. But hey, he's still putting up decent numbers. And pass rush 70, that's a decent grade. Did better against the Jets. We saw him go off. He had a few weeks off because of injury and coronavirus stuff and came back. Did really well that game, but granted, that's against Adam Gase and Sam Darnold. So take that with a grain of sea salt, man. Cleveland, everybody struggled that game. Kansas City did decent. We saw him putting pressure on Mahomes. We liked it a lot. It was really good. Now, I guess his worst game that's not just like a weather game would be against Buffalo everybody did bad. I think we were just straight up out coached. Sean McDermott has a good coaching staff there, and Tampa Bay, of course. And that worries me about Tampa Bay. I know he has less snaps in that game. You have to wonder why. Was he banged up? He only had 38 snaps as opposed to a typical 50. Was he banged up in that game? And Tampa Bay, yes, they're like the Super Bowl winning team, but their offensive line is technically their weakest part. I mean, they have rookies. They got young guys playing on the tackle position. So you would expect him to have a better game against Tampa Bay, especially if you want to be a pass rusher. So maybe an injury was holding him back that game. But overall, decent year. Definitely a big step up from 2019. I have a good, clear memory of 2019. Despite the win, did bad against Indianapolis. Green Bay, our defense was just straight up trash against Green Bay. Coverage was bad. Conley was bad. Everybody was bad. Didn't really have a good game last year, pass rushing wise, besides against Jacksonville and the Chargers. That says something when you're only able to get some pressure on Phillip Rivers. Definitely needs to improve. Hopefully Gus Bradley's the guy to do that. So I am going to wrap up now. This has been fun. We looked through pretty much every position, all the major starters. I skipped defensive tackle because we don't have a clear-cut starter there at that position. But this was a tough thing to do live, especially. But I wanted to have some interaction during it. It was really fun. I like seeing you guys all here. Tall Kinchit, Icy Nate. Thanks for being Eddie Linto. Thanks for being involved in this chat. Love the feedback. And Gruden does have to choose a role. Does he want to be the Belichick GM/coach? Does he really want to delegate that task to somebody else? Obviously didn't get along with Reggie McKenzie, but Reggie McKenzie had some trash drafts when you look at it. So outside of the famous 2014 draft, it's actually been pretty trash. Clee will get better. Chindo, I believe it. Has the motivation. He does. He's putting on some weight. Hopefully does well interior wise. Think he could do it. It's a culture issue. It starts with the coach. We know the truth. That's what he believes. Who will be the sack leader and interception leader, in my opinion? So sack leader, I think it has to be Unique Ngakoue. They put the money there. He's going to be double teamed most of the time. But Crosby coming off the injury, still don't think he gets that many snaps early in the season. Think he's going to come in midway. So I would still put my money on Unique Ngakoue being the sack leader. I hope somebody else surprises me because that means we would have two great pass rushers that are healthy. But as of right now, I would say Unique. Interception leader, I think when you look at it, we didn't really have any corner have too many picks last year. Jeff Heath had, probably like the most picks on our team when you really think of it. So I think it could be a safety again. If I had to put my money, and I don't know if Jeff Heath's necessarily going to start at safety, it could be Joseph over him. I would say Heath over Joseph now. So right now, I would say Jeff Heath. Ask me that question after the draft. It could be a rookie cornerback. I think whoever ends up playing slot corner is going to get a lot of opportunities to make plays and is going to get tested. I think Trayvon Mullen, people respect him a lot, so they're not going to really throw the ball too much his way. Damon Arnett, I don't have too much faith right now. I just got to see it. My dream scenario is that Damon Arnett is the interception leader on our team. Do I think that's going to happen? No. Do I hope it happens? Yes. And yes, we had no pick six last year. We had a horrible defense. Makes you want to drink a lot of alcohol. That does happen. Solomon Thomas. So Solomon Thomas has, I think, the physical skills to do something, has a lot to prove. I hope he balls out. I think he's going to have a Malik Collins type of year. I think he's probably going to sign with a different team next year. He's going to fill in. He's going to play some snaps. I don't think he's going to pop for us. I hope he's not as big of a liability as Malik Collins was last year, but he might be. So, I mean, I'm not high on Solomon Thomas. I mean, I'm not going to do a film breakdown on him like a lot of people are. I don't think it's going to work out. I think somebody else is going to step up at defensive tackling. David Irving has the best shot, second year around the locker room, physically really talented, showed what he could do last year too in a couple key games. I would put my money more on David Irving than Solomon Thomas, defensive tackle right now. Crosby was injured a majority of last year. Sinho, yes, it's true. And talking shit, yes. Crosby did have substance abuse issues, and like we all do, though, we're all human. He still did pretty well in 2019. So I think it was mainly just a physical injury that was setting him back, and having no depth, nobody to rotate with in 2020 set him back. Chindo, I have been impressed since the Tuck rule. Yes, that was actually the first season I really paid attention to as a young buck when I started getting into the Raiders. Anyways, I've had a lot of fun doing this. Thank you guys for chilling. I like doing this. I'm glad we're, you know, taking a look at the team, thinking about what's going to happen a week before the draft, looking at the PFF grades of everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. And yeah, I'm tired now. I got to do some homework. I got to work out too. I took some days off working out. Summer's coming up. We got to look hotter, right? You know, what if we go shirtless? We got to fix a lot of this stuff. So all right, man, make sure to subscribe to me. I'm doing this for the subs. I'm doing this for the likes. I'm trying to build this channel. Help me out. Like this video, subscribe, share my stuff, man. Try to put this stuff out there. And yeah, man, I just really want to build this channel, keep making more content. Let me know what stuff you like. If you see like a video and you're like, hey, I like that you're doing this kind of stuff. I like when you do this. Let me know. I'll do more of that. People like the grades. I'm going to do some more of that too. Grading different draft picks, grading free agency signings, film breakdowns. I think people always love. Those are a little more time consuming, but I love doing them. Check out my Ruggs one. Check out my Carl Joseph one. John Brown one, you know, I was getting started doing that one. That one's still a decent breakdown. But I think the Ruggs and the Joseph one have better production quality. Big Willie style. Yes. WiFiWillie. Yes, that is me. Thank another Willie. Have another Willie. I could be your second Willie. A lot of you guys. Actually, I broke down the data. 98% of my viewers are male. So can we get some more ladies in here too? Can we get some lady fans, Raider Nation? Where you at? All right, y'all. I've had a lot of fun. Thank you. Have a good one.